Did you know that punishing a child after telling the truth have some harmful consequences? Yes, punishing your child after telling you the truth has some dangerous consequences that you may not believe. That's what you're building. That's what you're, you know, injecting. That's what you're raising. Punishing a child after being truthful, yes, the behavior may be wrong. The child's behavior may be wrong. But for the mere fact that when you asked, the child owned up, that means the child is honest enough. And if you go ahead to punish that child immediately after being honest with you, you are sending a dangerous signal. You are sending a feedback. You're sending a message. You are instructing that child that next time he or she should never, ever be truthful. There are consequences when we do these things. And the reason I'm making this video is because something happened yesterday and I knew the person in question didn't know exactly what she was doing. So most of us are like that. We are blinded to the corrections we think we are passing on to our children. Stay tuned as we dissect the consequences behind punishing your child after telling the truth. So in this video, I'll be bringing you four consequences of punishing your child after telling the truth. And then I'm going to tell you exactly what to do rather than punishing. By the way, let me tell you this: punishment is completely different from discipline. If you thought discipline was punishment, you may have to wait for the next video so that you understand what this tool means. Punishment is never discipline. Now, I'm going to tell you the story of what happened yesterday before I bring you the four consequences. That thing you're doing, what it results to, the harm it results to. There are four of them. The harm it results to. So, if you're interested in, knowing what it is, maybe you find yourself in this path. Maybe you parent in this manner. You may have to stay tuned. To a child was being flogged for using the F word. So the child was discussing with another child in class. Their class teacher was seated on the class teacher's seat, and then the child used the F word. The class teacher called onto this child and asked, "Did you just use the F word?" The child said yes. The child said yes. On saying yes, from the child's disposition, you could see the body language. He immediately felt sorry because this is a school that does not encourage those kind of words to be used, and the child knows. So I'm sure he just went overboard using that word. That's what I perceived from the way the story was painted to me. And the story was painted to me by yet another child, a 7-year-old was the person reporting this to me. So when this other child accepted, he was honest enough to say, yes, I did use the F word. The teacher dragged him over and flogged him. So the child who's reporting to me now knows that that's not a good approach. So he felt bad. That's why he was reporting to me about what happened in school. Now, I will give the teacher the benefit of the doubt because you don't want to sit around children using such words, right? You don't want to sit around children using such words. You would like to point it to them that those words are not good. They shouldn't be used by them and all of that. But the approach with which we use in correction sometimes sends a different message from the message we intend to achieve. I'll say it again. Sometimes the approach with which we use in correction sends a different message from the message we intend to achieve. So by flogging this child, that wasn't a good approach. I will give the teacher again the benefit of the doubt of not knowing. That is why I am making this video, because most of us are, wired that way. We think by flogging, we think by punishing, we are sending a message of don't do it again. But those things do not work. So this child cried and walked away. Now, what have you succeeded in doing? The next time around, that child may shy away from being honest, especially to you. And the next time around, that child will become frightened. So communication is being broken. Communication is being broken, especially to you as well. And then he can take it, outside. So that was the story. Now, what are the consequences? What are the consequences of having to punish a child after being honest? Consequence number one, it encourages dishonesty. It encourages dishonesty. So the next time around, like I said, the child would hardly tell the truth to you nor to another person, because what you have registered in the mind of the child is, whether or not I tell the truth, I'm going to be punished, I'm going to be flogged. Okay, so the child will rather shy away from being truthful so that he avoids being punished. And maybe you heard it, taking the scenario in that school yesterday, the teacher heard it very, very well. So at the point where the child becomes dishonest, you're asking and the child is looking you in the face and saying no. You're asking and the child is looking you in the face and he's saying no. You get mad because you heard it. Now, you wouldn't know where that behavior is coming from. Maybe you're not even the first person. Maybe you're not the person who had flogged this child on telling the truth at the first instance some time ago. You're not the one. So you become mad. You're looking at this child like, this child is a liar, but that behavioral pattern is coming from somewhere. Something had happened that had plunged this child into this new behavior. So the second harmful consequence of punishing a child when he tells the truth is that it breaks communication. It breaks communication. So this this act makes the child begin to shy away from having conversations with either the parents or the caregivers or the teachers, in school. That's what happens when you punish a child after being truthful. Remember, the first one is that it encourages dishonesty, or you could say it in this way: dishonesty is being encouraged, okay, or it discourages honesty. The second one is it breaks communication. The third one is it fuels fear. It brings about fear rather than love and growth. It brings about fear rather than love and growth. So the child will begin to feel fearful anytime he or she is around you and they want to speak. They hold back a lot of things. They hold back a lot of things because they don't want to get into punishment. They don't want to be punished for saying, what they feel, what is inside of them, saying the right answers. Maybe you ask a question and then the answer, they don't want to get punished, especially in a classroom setting. You see some children, they hardly raise up their hand in class, to answer question. Is because they have been gripped with fear from a previous event, from a previous encounter with maybe the caregiver, the teacher, or the parent. Okay, so these things are not discipline, they are actually punishment. Punishment is completely different from discipline. I promised you the fourth one is that it damages trust. The child no longer trusts you, who's the parent. The child no longer trusts you, who's the caregiver. The child no longer trusts you, who's the teacher. And that is a very dangerous approach to parenting. When you're parenting a child who doesn't trust you, then that child has 100% exposure to the outside world, because as human beings, no matter what age, every one of us desire a shoulder to cry on. Every one of us wants that person who gives us a sense of belonging. So by the time you impute fear so much into your children, when they tell you the truth, you yell, you scream, you beat, you punish, or you get them grounded. They will definitely look for a trusted person outside the home or even within the home. They may decide to use the maid as their trusted person. So that's the first person they now go to when they have problems. And you can't guarantee the kind of information that they are getting from that person who is now seen to them as the trusted person. So parenting, we just have to be very intentional and very, very careful in our parenting so that we don't rather chase our children away in the bid to parent them right. Now, are we saying children should not be disciplined when they tell lies or when they do something wrong? Not at all. That's not what we're saying. That's why I told you that after giving you the harmful consequences, I'm going to give you the positive discipline, how to approach, some of these things, how to approach some of these things, better approach and positive discipline. Better approach and positive discipline. How do you address a situation like the story I just told? First of all, you have to praise the honesty first. You have to praise the honesty first. I'm proud you told me the truth. I am so proud of you for telling me the truth. Then you begin to speak to the ill that was done. You begin to speak to the wrong that was done. Sometimes I don't even encourage speaking about it immediately. Sometimes I would prefer that, okay, you allow the time go by, maybe in the evening on a more relaxed mind. That's why I said parenting is intentional, because you have to keep a tap on that situation so that you can follow it up. So in the evening, on a more relaxed settings, you can remind the child, bring up that subject and say, you did use the F word. Can you remember our family values? Can you remember the words that are unacceptable in this family? On a relaxed mood, the child will take in everything you're saying. That becomes a growth moment rather than instilling fear. That becomes a growth moment. Growth. Okay. So you're developing the child in that area. So the child will not hold back the next time around having to talk to you. Now, the second thing you're to do in that situation is teach consequences calmly. Teach consequences calmly. Now, explain why the action was wrong and allow natural consequences where appropriate. Explain why the action was wrong and allow natural consequences calmly, appropriately. Now, in that school situation, if I were the teacher, I will not wait to discuss that subject later on, because the next day I may be held up with so many things and I will forget. So I will use that moment and say, come on, I don't want to hear that again. That language is not acceptable in this school, neither is it acceptable in this class. Then you can make the child to go and write, I will never say this word again. That sentence, I will never say this again. I will never say this word again. You make the child to write it like 30 times, on a book, first row, second row, and then name it 1 to about 30 or 1 to about 50. That's how to approach such situations in a classroom settings. Okay. Now, what's the next thing to do? Involve them in problem solving. Involve them in problem solving. Ask, what do you think we should do to make this right? What do you think we should do to make this right? Maybe it was a situation where they broke something or whatever. It may not be using the F word. It could be something else that was wrongly done. Okay. You ask them, bring them into that situation. Let them begin to dissect solutions. Let them begin to look around for solutions. What do we do next? Now, this is a problem we have at hand. What do we do next? When you do that, what are you doing? You are opening up their creative mind. You're opening up their thinking abilities. That's what you're doing. You don't want to raise a robotic child. You want to raise a child that has some senses, a child that is thinking, that a child that, at the blink of an eye, he's bringing up ideas that could serve as solutions to problems. A child that is communicative, a child that is communicative, a child that is a team player. That's the kind of child you want to raise. You don't want to raise a robot. You don't want to raise a child who is just there waiting for whoever to say move and the child moves. Okay. You don't parent a wholesome child like that. So, in conclusion, what's the bottom line? What's the bottom line for all of this discussion we've had, or this video I've brought across your way? Bottom line is, if the goal is to raise a truthful, responsible child, then the truth telling must feel safer than lying. When kids know they can be honest without fear, they are more likely to build integrity over time. Okay, so this is where I leave you in this video. If you've had such a situation, kindly put it down in the comment section. Share with us. We are here to share with ourselves. Nobody knows it all. No one is an island of knowledge, but we are here to hold ourselves to navigate the struggles of parenting together. If you're coming across this channel for the first time, I remain Peggy, the face behind the Wholesome Kids brand. I advocate for parents raising wholesome kids. And I would always add, you cannot raise a wholesome kid if you yourself are not wholesome. Parenting is a skill that needs to be learned,